Barbarians have lived Algeria since ancient times. The barbarians were probably the first to settle in northwest Africa. Then different invading nations came here in turn. Phoenician merchants settled in Algeria in the first millennium BC. Then the Carthaginian nations also invaded here. Centuries later, the Romans invaded the region and took control of the entire Mediterranean coast by 40 BC. When Rome fell in the 5th century AD, the Vandals invaded the region. The Byzantine, Eastern Roman, Empire later regained control of the region. Muslim invasions began here in the 7th century AD. And by 611 AD the whole of South Africa came under the control of the Umayyad dynasty caliphs. Arab Muslims introduced Islam and Arabic language here. Several barbarian Muslim dynasties then ruled the region. The Al-Muravid Dynasty is the most notable of these. The Almoravids ruled from 1054 to 1130 AD. And their empire extended as far as Spain in Europe. The Almohad dynasty also ruled from 1130 to 1269 AD. In 1518, the Turkish Ottoman Empire occupied northern Algeria. Pirates of the barbarian coast have been a threat to Mediterranean trade for centuries. The French invaded Algeria in 1830, outraged by the pirates' attack and falsely suppressing them. By 1848, France had imposed martial law on most of the territory. Algeria became a French colony. By the end of the 19th century, the French had introduced civilian rule in Algeria. About 1 million white Europeans, mainly French, Spanish and Italian, immigrated to Algeria at this time. But as the Algerians revolted against French colonial rule in the 1920s in the 20th century, they began to demand more rights. Finally, in 1954, Algeria's War of Independence against France began, led by a group called the Front de Libération Nationale, FLN, National Independence Front. The war lasted for about 6 years till 1971. Independence was finally achieved through a referendum in 1972. The 8-year War of Independence has left the country devastated, with nearly 1 million people killed and almost all Europeans fleeing Algeria except for a few thousand at the end of the war. From the Libération Nationale the new government is formed. At the time of independence, Algeria's economy was underdeveloped and dependent on agriculture, but the government soon took steps to modernize it. Algeria is currently one of the richest countries in Africa, and one of the reasons is petroleum exports. In 1991, the first democratic elections were held in Algeria. One of these groups was the Islamist Front Islami de Salvation, FES. They wanted to establish an Islamic state in Algeria. When it became clear that the FES would win a majority of seats, the ruling government, with the help of the military, cancelled the election and took control of the country. This led to a devastating civil war between the military and Islamic fundamentalists in the country. Thousands of Algerians have been killed in terrorist attacks. In another election in 1999, Algerians elected Abdelaziz Bouteflika as president for the first time since 1985 as a civilian. But the government continues to clash with various extremist Islamist groups. Due to the political turmoil, a large number of skilled foreign workers have left Algeria. However, as a result of government initiatives, this war was largely suppressed at the beginning of the 21st century. Algeria continues to play an important role in world politics as a member of the United Nations and the Arab